Hi, Anthony here. I'm making a video today on random generation. So if you're making an endless runner or just when you get to a point in a game and you want to add something, this is for you. Now if you want to see what I did last week, up here. But let's get into it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got this dot, obviously, and we've got the box. And when it hits the box, you die. So you've got to jump over the box. And when you get to the other side of the box, here, I'm going to spawn another box, and that'll be somewhere in the range of the top and the bottom. And so we'll put a random variable in there that will make it go up and down. And then we're also going to spawn a bottom rail and a top rail. So that's what's happening today. So what we're going to do quickly is make a camera follow script. This is nothing to do with that, but it's going to make it so we can go along and it's not going to have a bouncy camera. So we're going to shoot through this pretty quickly. It's not important, but it just helps make the game scene easier. Do a subscribe, guys. That would help a lot. Thanks. And so what the camera is going to do here is follow the X axis only, if I can work out what I'm doing here. And when it goes along in Unity, it'll follow the X axis. Oh, we've got to put the dot on there. And okay, I've missed something. Yes, it's a -10. Okay. So there. So it's just going to follow the x-axis and that's it. Not the y-axis. So it won't be so the camera won't be so bouncy. It'll just move along on its x-axis. See, like that. Perfect. Okay, so now we can get into doing the random generation. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do a game manager script, and that's going to handle our box, our rails, and it's going to spawn these items. So we're going to add it to our camera, and we'll go into the game manager script, and we're going to add some variables in. They'll make them public. First we'll get the transform of the dot. So we'll call that dot trans. And then we'll get the we're going to make some game objects. So this is where we're going to store our dot. Our box. Sorry. And so we'll call it square. And we're also going to get. And we're going to add our rail here too. Not top rail. I think we'll just call it rail, because we can spawn it's going to be the same as the bottom and top. If you're going to do two different looking rails, you're going to have to put a top and bottom rail in there. But I'm just doing the same rail at the top and the bottom. And we need a vector 3, which is as a point. That's so when we get along, we set a point. Yeah, that'll come into it later. I'll show you as that comes along. Now we're going to use a fixed update, so we're not relying. The update can be a little bit variable in speed, so the fixed update is every second or so. It just makes everything on time and the same. It makes everything a lot similar. Now what I'm going to do is print the distance as we go along of our dot, and we'll use that to find out how far we've gone, so then we can know how far we're going to go each time before we have to respawn stuff. So we're going to hit play, and it'll come up in our console of the distance we've traveled. Hit console, and you can see we're traveling here, and when we just get past it, we get to about 11.5. That shows you everything we've done. 11.5 is the big one. So we know them. If we change this into an if statement now, This is a little bit messy, but I'll clean it up. Get rid of these extra brackets I don't need. And so the distance will spit out a variable, a float, sorry. And if that float is greater than 11.5, it's going to spawn our objects. So we'll make a spawn method, and this is where we can put in our square and our rails to be spawned. But we'll just make this for the moment, and then we'll call it in our if statement here in the fixed update, which is we'll just put spawn in here, and that's it. Now, I've actually realized I made a bit of a mistake here because I need the point to show you. We have to reset the point each time. So every time we go past it, we can then reset our distance. So that's why I had the vector3 point. And so when at the start, we're going to get what the point is in the vector3. And we're going to have to actually comment all this out again. And we'll have to do this quickly again. We'll make a print statement, and it will print now a different answer, which is why what we've done wrong here is we're going to get the vector3 distance again, and it'll be transform dot position, and then the point, everything's the same here, but because the point in the is set different at the start, it's going to print out a different answer. So what happens, we'll play it now, and when it gets past it, we're at 13.7, which is different because we set the point to be the same as the dot at the start. So we'll go back now and we can fix this up. So we'll make that 13.7, and now we can reset the point that it starts our distance check from. So point will equal now, it's the same as the start, dot trans dot position. And so every time it goes past the point, and it resets itself. And so now we're on track. And now we're going to put our rail, spawn our rails and our square. But we might add the rails first. We've got our box there. Let's go and add some rails. So a new sprite. We're gonna add. What are we gonna make it? These are all just not gonna really be. Well, we use a button. I suppose it'll do. Turn it to 90. Maybe make it like a spike kind of thing. We can turn it 90 degrees. Okay, now we'll stretch them out. I don't think, I'm still not happy with it, but oh, you can see it now because it was in the camera layer. So now I'll put it on 0. I don't think it's still good, but I might do. Okay, we'll call it a no. Look, let's add a square to it. Let's make it. Well, this square is just a flat PNG that it's a sprite here, but just to make it simple and looks nice and clean. Okay, so we'll stretch them out, and we'll add a color to them. Let's say, we'll call it rail, and then we'll add the color, say red, and then we have to add a box collider to it, and the idea is that the dot won't fall out of the game. Then it's just going to stay in this, and you've got to try and dodge these boxes, and so we'll duplicate it and put one up the top and one down the bottom. So as we go along, we can jump as much as we want, but we shouldn't be able to go through the rails. Let's test that out and see how it goes. And straight through the rail. Yay. I think the dot's only got a trigger on it, not an actual collider. So we might just cheat a bit here, and we'll go through, see it's the trigger. We'll go through and we'll add another circle collider without a trigger on it, and that will make it so it won't be able to go through these rails. Yeah, there's no trigger. Okay, so that should be right. Now let's just adjust these rails up a little bit. So this is just setting the transforms up so they're a bit more uniformed for the top and the bottom, just to make it cleaner in our code and nice and neat instead of these really odd numbers, and they're about the same for top and bottom. They're both starting at 0. And now we can, I think, go back to our script and start spawning our items in. So what we're going to do is instantiate a game object. And this is how this spawn an object. So we'll instantiate a we'll call it rail first, and that will just spawn the object at 0, 0. So that's not gonna work. So what we're gonna have to do is make a game object called bottom rail equals a new object, and then what we'll do underneath that is bottom rail dot transform dot local position, and this is where, so we can put, this is how we define what position it's going to be in. So we can put it in front of the next set of rails, so we're just laying the rails out as we go along kind of thing. And we'll make a new vector 3, and the x-axis is what we're changing. The y-axis is going to stay the same, so that's why we made them a bit cleaner here. The y-axis is going to be 4.5. We can't make it go up or down, and the z's going to be 0. So it's only x that we're going to change as it moves along. So let's make that go back to 0. Oh, so yeah, it's about 15. A distance of 15 it'll go to make it to the next one. So here we go. We'll add a float in up here. Man, I was asleep when I'm doing this. A float rail move, and in here we'll put rail move is our x, and we know our y is going to stay the same at 4.5, and z is going to be 0. So then we can just copy and paste it and make that a top rail. So this will spawn our top rail as well. But it's, remember how we set that at 4.5, so that's what that will be. And I think we'll do the box in a minute. Let's see if we can get our rails to spawn in front as we go. What else have we got here? We've got to make our rail move float. So this is how every time it gets that distance, it's going to do our rail move minus 15 because we're going in a negative direction. So let's see if this works. Playing, and as we go along we'll get past the box and we should get some new rails, and we do. So this is kind of cool. I'm getting some rails going along. Okay, so we'll go back to our script now, and we're going to add in our box. So now we can spawn our box randomly. So we're going to make it the same as what we've done with our top and our bottom rail. We're going to make a game object box, and we'll instantiate that as it's a square because that's what we made it. And it's going to be similar to that. It's going to be box dot transform box. Typing so slow today. Dot transform. Okay. All your variables should be lowercase, so let's just make it what it should be, not have it all confusing. And it's going to be a local position again, but this time we're going to do a new vector 3. And what the main difference here is we're going to have our move rail. I think that we'll try that for now and see if that works, if it spawns it. 15 ahead is the right distance. Yeah, I think we'll just try the rail move. Sorry. But this is where we're going to change, because we're going to put it so it's a random range, and that will put it somewhere in our rails. So random dot range, and then you can see a minimum and maximum float. So now let's go and see in Unity what our minimum and maximum float is. So we'll move our box down to the bottom, and we see it's around about 2.8, 2.9. And if we move our box all the way up to the top, it's going to be about 2.9, something like that. I think 2.9 minus 2.9 to positive 2.9 is about our random range for me. So minus 2.9, comma 2.9. And then, sorry, we'll make them F's. And then a comma 0 for the z-axis. Close our brackets, and that will give us hopefully some random boxes coming along. Let's have a look. Play. Here we go. Rails. Another box. That's slightly up from the bottom. Rails. Another box. It's towards the top. So you can see this is working. But we're getting a lot there. So what happens to all this stuff? These rails that keep going as we keep going. We eventually going to crash the game for having too many objects. So we're going to have to work out a way to delete these boxes as we've gone past them. So this is the last little bit here. And what we're going to do is go to a game manager. Now, if you haven't seen this, I did this a few weeks ago. This is how to connect a script with a script. And so we're going to make the game manager a static game manager sent to an instance. So I'm going to kind of shoot through this, and then I'm going to copy and paste some code in here. If you want to see the video, have a look at the link I added up here. But I'm just doing this quickly because I've already kind of gone through this bit in a few videos ago. So just making it so we can access our game manager script via code. So when we go back to our box, when we go past our box, we're going to then, that box is going to get destroyed. So we'll make a float and we'll call it box. I'm very original today. Oh, box X, yeah, because we're going to get the X axis of the box right here. So it's transform dot local position dot X, and that's just picking up our X axis of our box. And then in our update, we're just going to put a little bit of code here. We need another float of, this is where our dot is. So that's why we need to get the game manager and the game. So it's finding the transform local position X, and that'll give us where our actual dot is. Well, it's kind of the camera, but it's pretty much close enough for this. They're both one and the same almost. So then all we have to do is write an if statement here. Box X is less than, or is it greater than? Less than X. So greater than X. So yeah. Then it's going to destroy this box. So it's basically finding out, the box is finding out if the dot's gone past it, and if it has, it's going to destroy the box. So if you put destroy game object, that's the game objects that this script's attached to, and if you put the 2 in there, that means 2 seconds. So it's destroying it 2 seconds after I've gone past it. So let's see if we go past this box. Once we get to about here, 1, 2, gone. That's how it works. So let's copy this script, and we'll we'll copy this, but we're gonna have to make a Rails script, because I don't think we've actually got a script on the rail, and that will find out if the dot's gone past the rails. So we'll have a look here. Rail, and we'll add that to our rail. We'll open it up, and we're going to add this script, what we wrote before, out here, and put it in the rail script, and we'll just modify it a little bit here, but it's pretty much the same thing. And this is basically give us something so the rail can, we've also needed our float up the top here. We'll call it railx maybe, and the same thing here, railx equals transform dot local position dot x, it will be. Okay, and then we just have to change that box x to railx, and that should be it. Now as we go along, it will get rid of our rails as we go as well. Now we made this rail into a prefab, and we're going to just add it to our prefab, so it'll update all the rails that it instantiates. There we go. And here we go. So I've got it mixed up here a bit, but we'll clean this up. Now that's on the rails. So now the rail, as we go along, this script is going to get rid of the rails at the same time. Oops, it's getting rid of them too quickly. So maybe we'll just change it so it does it after 4 seconds or something instead of 2 seconds, because it's after it goes past the midpoint of the rails, and 2 seconds isn't long enough. So all these things are just a thing to show you how it's done, but it's not the most prettiest game, this. I get that. Okay, that's about it. It's getting crazy. Yeah, so I hope that helps you out. This is just showing you how to do things. Don't judge me on how terrible the game looks, but more the method of how we did it. And I hope you've learned something. Please subscribe. I hope you keep sticking around. I'm going to make more Unity videos next week and the weeks after. So comment, tell me what you do like, what you want to see. I'm happy to listen to you on Twitter or anything like that. And thanks for watching.